crowd packed the grandstand in Phoenix. They were even up on Rattlesnake Hill, all there to see a couple of guys do a duel in the desert. Jimmy Johnson and Mark Martin looking to see who would take home the prize, the Sprint Cup Series trophy. Just one race remains to decide who will take it home.
Gotta focus, bud. Eyes forward. Doing the race.
The three-time and defending NASCAR Sprint Cup champion gets it done and wins the third year in a row here at Phoenix.
Yes, yes, yes! Save me some of that champagne, boys. Jimmy, fantastic job today, man. Great effort. Absolutely, boys. Thank you. Exactly what we needed.
You're a three-time champion. This is the way you're supposed to race. Jimmy Johnson comes to the line, winning for the 7th time this year. He'll take it here at Phoenix, Arizona, and moves on to Homestead, Miami Speedway, where he'll basically just have to show up to clinch a 4th consecutive title.
NASCAR Now is presented by the Home Depot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable. I'm Mike Massaro, alongside Boris Said. From ESPN The Magazine, Ryan McGee and Ricky Craven is here as well. And gentlemen, a breakout day and one that will go a long way in determining this championship. In a couple of words, how would you describe what we saw on Sunday in Phoenix?
I would just say amazing. I mean, Jimmy Johnson clearly is the best driver in NASCAR right now, and he's about to make history.
Beat down. And you know, yeah, the other fans don't want to hear that, but that's exactly what it is.
Broke the hearts of his competitors, too.
Very powerful. As a team, they just go after it, and they don't coast to anything. They just lay with it and, you know, put up the big numbers.
All right, now it's time to put the day of the 48 under the microscope. Started off a little bit rocky, Ricky, a little smoke here from the car.
Yeah, I called Scott Maxim, head of the engine department at Hendrick Motorsports. He said it was just normal engine.
Proved not to be much of a problem, and he battles door to door with Mark Martin.
Pretty aggressive with his teammate getting into turn one. He was headed to the front.
A little bit of an issue in the pits. His jack man, Kenneth Purcell, a little bit of an ankle injury still. Pretty efficient on pit road, I would say, Ricky.
Yeah, they were efficient. You know, you didn't have to be perfect when you had the lead that Jimmy Johnson had all day.
And in the closing laps, he had a very strong race car. Was being pursued by Jeff Burton, but in the end, he would be the guy to go to victory lane, picking up the win and extending his championship lead by now 108 points.
Chad and I, the conversations we've had, the team meeting, everything was, we need to show what we're made of. We need to get this done today. I guess in the end it could have been a statement that we're sending, but we knew we had to come out today and run well. We knew that this was going to be a great track for the 5 and also for the 24. And the only way to get any points on them would be to lead the most laps and win the race.
Coming in here the way that we had to reestablish our motivation to come in and run this race. You know, it's difficult because everybody's like, oh, you'll be fine. You know, you've got a 70-point lead, you'll be fine. I don't think people really understand how difficult it is to be fine in this industry. I mean, it's really hard. There's a lot of guys out there trying to be fine, you know, and to do what it is that we're trying to accomplish, man, it's a lot of hard work.
We looked each other in the eyes, knew what we had to do, and delivered. It wasn't easy. You know, there's a lot of pressure on us to do this. You know, all week long thinking about this race, wondering if we could come back and step up like we did today. There's just a lot of thoughts that go through the brain, and I'm very, very proud of how we delivered and rose to the occasion.
Everybody's got to dig, and you can't sit back and you can't rest and you can't think what ifs or what happens now. You know, you got to just go in there and attack, and that's kind of the mentality that we had. We prepare the cars to the best of our ability. We pump up Jimmy, we pump up the pit crew. I push Jimmy throughout practice to, you know, if we're a half a tenth slower than whoever the fastest car in practice, I push him to get him to where we're a tenth faster. You know, and that's how we prepare and that's how we do it.
No reason for this team not to be pumped up. Jimmy Johnson finds himself with the points lead entering Homestead for the 4th straight year. In his past 3 championship seasons, Johnson has led by as little as 63 points entering the final race. His 108-point lead is not quite as big as it was last year when he needed to finish just 36th to clinch the title, but it still is larger than it was in both 2006 and 2007. And gentlemen, an interesting question that Jimmy was asked during his media session was about the statement that was made. I want to get your opinions. What type of statement do you think he made on Sunday?
Well, he tried to downplay it, but, you know, these guys, they talk like a football team, and they act like a football team, and football teams like to send statements. And what we talked about this at Texas last week, when he should have been out of the race, he got back out on the racetrack, and even when he didn't have to, he kept running laps, and he was sending a message, whether he's willing to admit it or not. And I think, again, another message has been sent, and this one was even worse for the competition than what we saw in Texas.
I think he makes a statement every week. I certainly have heard it all through the chase, guys, that maximum points. That's what Jimmie Johnson starts the day with, his focus, maximum points, and he ends that day usually successful. And I think it sort of resonates through the garage area, you know, that he's done this so often that guys look at him and give him the respect he deserves. And we heard it from Mark Martin this week. We've heard it from other drivers in the past, and we'll continue to hear it because they just do it.
I really think you have to go back to Texas, though. I think he was much more motivated because the fact that he got wrecked out on lap 3 in Texas, he really took the blame because he qualified poorly, 12th. That's really bad, but for Jimmie Johnson it is. So he came to Phoenix, loaded for bear. He sat in the he was 3rd in qualifying. He was quickest in happy hour, and he dominated the race. So I think that's really the message you wanted to say.
And he'll be loaded for bear once again when we get to Homestead. We spoke with him on the show last night, and he said, as he said all along, they plan to attack. Plan to be aggressive. He wants to run up front. He feels like if he runs in the top 3, he avoids the trouble that typically happens in the middle of the pack. Bottom line, though, is if he finishes 25th or better, there's nothing Mark Martin can do. I mean, there's a big cushion there. So what do you think about the approach to be as aggressive as he plans to be?
Well, I think it works for him. I think the best defense is a good offense, and if he's out front, he has less chance of getting in a wreck. So I just think that's the way he is in his mind. He goes as fast as he can all the time.
It's interesting, though, because you talk to some of the guys who've had big points leads or had big leads in races. And I talked to Buddy Baker about this. You know, for years and years and years, he couldn't win the Daytona 500. And when he finally won it, he had such a big lead, and he said that every little creak in that car sounded like a bomb going off because you just kind of wait for something to happen. I don't get that sense from Jimmy, but you feel like so that's going to be in the back of the mind. It's obviously already in Chad Knaus's mind. We heard it in the soundbite.
He is most comfortable leading the race on the edge. And regardless of what you think or what it looks like, it's not comfortable. He's running on the edge. He's in his element when he's on the edge. And when he's trying to be predictable or careful, he finds trouble, you know. I think he did it one time, and that was at Texas early, where he's trying to be careful, got in trouble. He stayed far enough back at Talladega that he got away with it. But, you know, he is at his best when he's on the edge.
But, Ryan, you're right. I think, you know, when you're leading a race, you have 1 lap to go, you hear everything in the motor. You think Jimmy's going to have that the whole 4 hours down at Homestead. I mean,
practice,
he's going to be in the back of his mind. All weekend, he's going to have that kind of pressure. But he's a closer. He'll deliver.
Well, one guy who's taking the pressure off of Jimmy is his car owner, Rick Hendrick. I mean, he gives him superior equipment every week, and, well, he may be on the verge of a little more history himself. With just 3 cars remaining mathematically alive for this year's title, and all being Hendrick Motorsports cars, Rick Hendrick is the 2009 championship car owner. It's Hendrick's 12th owner's title, 9 in Sprint Cup, 3 in the Truck Series.
It's an awesome feeling. You know, I really have a hard time explaining how proud I am of the organization, and these guys right here are just unbelievable. And you know, we thought we would be good this year, and it's knowing that one of the cars is going to win it. You know, I was said this morning, Jimmy could be, you know, getting his 4th and setting a record that no one's ever done. Mark could get his 1st one, or Jeff, you know, could get the 5th one. But I'm just proud of the way they work together, and Chad and Jimmy have just been unbelievable. And to watch them, I said this earlier today, I'm just glad I don't have to race against them.
Hendrick Motorsports, 12 owners' titles in the top 3 series of NASCAR is the most in the sport's history. Hendrick entered the season tied with Richard Childress Racing, and of course, as we point out, 9 of those titles have come in the Sprint Cup Series, with 3 others coming in the Truck Series with driver Jack Sprague. And, well, I guess you can make an argument that they may have won a 13th title, Ryan, as well, because after all, Rick was affiliated with that Nationwide Series title with Brian Vickers, too.
Brian Vickers drove a car owned by Ricky Hendrick, Rick's son, and Rick's very careful to say that was Ricky's team. But if you go to the Hendrick Motorsports Museum, they don't shy from having that trophy there inside the door.
Guys, you know, you've had dealings with Rick from a business perspective, also from a driver's perspective. Why is he so successful?
He has a presence, Mike. All of us have been around people that have that presence, you know, a calming effect. And I watched him with Mark Martin specifically this year. The way he puts his arm around Mark, could be Jeff, could be Jimmy. But he has that ability to bring the absolute best out of people when they need it the most. And I don't think it's coincidence that Rick has spent more time with his race teams in the last 3 or 4 years, and I think the effects speak for that. You know, he is a great, great leader, obviously.
I agree, Ricky. He's a motivator, and what he's done, you know, basically he was the first guy with the multi-car teams, and it's like a tug-of-war with a rope. He's got 4 guys pulling against guys with 1. They're always going to win, and I think he's done a really good job getting those teams to work together.
Ryan, it's not just this owner's title. I mean, it appears very likely that Hendrick Motorsports will sweep the top 3 positions in the standings. That's never happened before. Put a little perspective on that.
Well, that gets lost. And really, honestly, you know, when teams have had amazing stretches, whether it's Junior Johnson in the 80s or the Pettys in the 70s and 60s, or even going back to Carl Kiekhaefer back in the 50s, you know, they only did it with maybe 1 car. You know, Kiekhaefer did it with 2 or 3 cars, but back then you had 9 cars in a race, 12 cars in a race. No one has had the sustained success with such a large group of cars. And it's not just the cars at Hendrick Motorsports, guys. It's Stewart-Haas Racing, and it's JR Motorsports. I mean, he has his fingers in a lot of different race teams. So we've never seen anything quite like this as far as one man kind of having his hand on so many moving parts that are so successful.
He could one day be considered the best owner or the greatest owner in NASCAR history one day. But how does he compare to owners in other sports? We've asked you. This is our Sports Nation poll question. Who is the best sports owner of all time? Is it the citizens of Green Bay who own the Packers, George Steinbrenner who owns the Yankees, or Rick Hendrick, as we mentioned, or the Rooney family, which owns the Steelers? The answer coming up later in the show. Still under the hood, Dynasties. They're rare and elite. Why the 48 team could ultimately be considered one of the greatest teams in all of sports history. We'll show you how Ron Hornaday claimed the Truck Series title and why claiming the nationwide championship is nothing but a formality for Kyle Busch. And we'll discuss the situation surrounding Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon going into Homestead, why their championship hopes have all but disappeared.
NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot. Visit HomeDepot.com. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. And in part by Haynes. Look who we've got our hands on now.
They may call him the old man, but he hasn't forgotten how to win a race.
Down to the line he comes. Checkered flag is out.
You crushed him, baby. You crushed him, baby.
50 years old and having the time of his life. Is that not American dream?
You're unbelievable, buddy. You are the man.
Sunday wasn't the day Mark Martin was hoping for. He started 10th, had a strong car, however, not strong enough to lead a lap. He ended up finishing 4th. Martin entered Phoenix with renewed championship hopes, but by day's end, those hopes started to fade, and he was not real happy about it either.
And that last run was what we needed, but the car just, you know, it just didn't quite, it got a little tight. It wasn't quite what it had been on some of the earlier long runs. I really thought I could get to them. I thought it was going to be a 4-car race there. With 35 to go, the way my car had been coming on, I thought, you know, this is going to be fun. It's going to be a 4-car race, but kind of fizzled out. I'm very satisfied. It was a great job by this team.
It was a good day. It was solid. We were just off a little bit, you know, and to win these things, you've got to be perfect. And we were just off with tick in really all phases, but really solid. It's hard to be disappointed. The guys worked really, really hard, and Mark drove his tail off and just came a little bit short.
There is a stat that gives Mark Martin a little bit of hope. Mark Martin has gained at least 108 points on Jimmy Johnson in a single race 9 times in his career, including once back at Homestead in 2005 when Martin had a 132-point gain on Johnson. He gained 111 points. I don't think we need to remind you of this. Back at Texas just over a week ago. Jeff Gordon came to Phoenix clinging to some slim championship hope, and his lackluster day sealed his fate. Gordon started 14th, finished 9th. He's now 169 points back. Once Jimmy Johnson takes the green flag Sunday, Gordon will be officially eliminated, and you can hear the disappointment in his voice.
We lost track position. That didn't help, and we weren't good on the restarts. That didn't help, and then we tried to make adjustments, and we tried everything, and none of them seemed to really help. So I don't know. The track changed, and it affected us more than it did some others. Well, I was really excited at the beginning. I thought we were great, and I thought we were really going to be a threat for the win, or at least a top 3 or 4. And man, it just went away, in a blink of an eye. On the restart, they took me 3 wide. We just couldn't get up and get going. I was on the inside lane, and from that point on, it was just a struggle.
Jeff Gordon has had a very successful chase history, recording 40 top 10s and 59 chase races with an average finish of just over 11th. Teammate Jimmie Johnson has been even tougher though, leading all Sprint Cup drivers since the chase began in 2004 in wins, top 10s, average finish, and most importantly, championships. Now, gentlemen, we just heard Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon talk. Now, they didn't necessarily concede, but what did you hear in their voices?
Mark Martin's the eternal optimist, has turned into the eternal optimist, and his shoulders are just, I mean, you just kind of, I mean, he's not going to give up. He's going to go to Homestead and throw everything he's got at him. He just kind of felt that.
And part of the reason his shoulders were down is because he's exhausted. Okay? Listen, this guy had, every week, it just amazes me, and he always has, but I mean, he worked hard for this. His car did not restart well. That's very difficult, Boris, isn't it? With these double file restarts, these guys running over the back of you. The fact that he didn't get run over, it was just a respect to him for the way he drives. But he had his work cut out for him every time they restarted because he struggled for about 20 laps.
I think Mark's got to be pretty happy with how the season went because it wasn't that long or early in the season. Mark Martin was outside the top 35 in points, qualifying as a go-or-go homer. So he's probably the only go-or-go homer to ever finish in the top if he finishes second in the points. So he's had a great season, just not as good as Jimmie Johnson. Yeah. Like he said, he's a freak.
One thing that I'm curious about, these are guys who they know they've got the same resources available to them that Jimmie has. Yet they're getting beaten soundly week after week by the 48 team. What do you think that's like for those two guys?
Well, they come up empty. But it's the little things, Mike. It's, it's the fact that Jeff Gordon said we weren't successful in keeping up with the racetrack when others were. Who were those others? Jimmie Johnson. He got better as the race went on, while his competition, the guys who challenged him the most, got worse. The fact is, the little things is what separates these guys. Over 3.5 or 4 hours, it becomes big things. But think about this. Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin never let a lap all day. That's one of those little things.
And the little things do go a long way in these championship battles. Hey, folks, we've got a lot more little things to come, even some big things to come. Still ahead, Jimmie Johnson returned to form Sunday, rebuilding his championship lead. Hear what he had to say the day after scoring the Phoenix win. And this weekend, Ron Hornaday wrapped up the Truck Series championship, while Kyle Busch moved within a single lap of the nationwide crown. We'll discuss those issues when we return.
Welcome back to NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot.
The Nationwide Series was in action Saturday in Phoenix. Kyle Busch trying to wrap up the title there, and Carl Edwards trying to delay what appears to be the inevitable. Early on, some trouble for the championship leader, Kyle Busch.
Yeah, he just got loose, and I almost think Clint Boyd avoided him there, saved him some damage.
Yeah, he got a little bit of damage there to the rear of that car. They'll tape it up and get him back out there. Meanwhile, on restart, Denny Hamlin chooses the outside lane. Carl Edwards takes the inside lane, and the battle is on. Edwards takes advantage. Now, issues here. This is Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski. We'll talk a lot about this on this show.
He just got into him a little bit. This time, he repaid the favor. That's good old-fashioned payback. You see, he gets into him, spins him out, and I don't think Denny's going to be too happy about that.
This has been an ongoing issue between Hamlin and Keselowski throughout the course of 2009. We'll talk a lot more about that later in the show. Kyle Busch slipping back, car going away. Matt Kenseth passes him. Meanwhile, as we fast forward to the last lap, Carl Edwards, the one going to victory lane. Kyle Busch does not wrap up the title. Meanwhile, there's your celebratory somersault for Carl Edwards.
Tuck and roll.
Nice. Can't do that backflip with a broken foot or a recovering broken foot. Still a little tender there. Now, Kyle Busch's start at Homestead, as we mentioned, will clinch the Nationwide Series title, a title that he has certainly earned this season. Busch led all drivers in wins and average finish and was tied for the lead with 29 top 10 finishes. Amazing. His 2,625 laps led are also a single-season series record. The previous high was set by Sam Ard. It was 2,127 laps led back in 1984, and still certainly one race to go. Probably could leave a few more laps. Hey, the Truck Series title was on the line as well this weekend. Ron Hornaday, the championship leader, looking to put some wraps on that. Kevin Harvick, his Truck Series owner, little trouble early, Rick.
Yeah, that's just a little tight racing on a flat mile track.
Yeah, and he spins out, but he would recover, as we'll notice. Meanwhile, Ron Hornaday on pit road. A little bit of an issue here, a penalty. Now, remember the different pit road rules in the Truck Series. Gas man begins fueling before the catch can man is in place, and that's a bit of a penalty. However, back on pit road, Hornaday passes Matt Crafton. That's on lap 92. Crafton had some issues with a lug nut. Meanwhile, back up front, Harvick recovering from that early race spin, holding off Kyle Busch, taking advantage as Taylor Malsom brings out the caution. Harvick holds on for the victory. And he and his driver would do dueling burnouts. Hornaday, your champion in the Truck Series. Ron Hornaday becomes the oldest NASCAR National Touring Series champion in history at 51 years old. Hornaday was nearly 3 years older than Jack Ingram when he won the Nationwide Series title in 1985, and almost 6 years older than the oldest Sprint Cup Series champion. That was Bobby Allison. And guys, 51 years old. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, anytime you can get Sam Ard, a double burnout, and Jack Ingram in the same segment of a television show, that's good TV right there. But no, I mean, it's great, and it's great for him. And I don't know anyone in the garage that doesn't like Ron Hornaday. So good for him.
How old are you, Ricky?
I feel pretty young.
I'm asking you this question on national TV.
A young 43 now.
Can you imagine doing this at 51?
No, you know, it's remarkable. It really is. And he deserves a lot of credit. And you're right, Ryan, the fact that everybody respects him, appreciates him, and he's building his legend still at 51. And all the young drivers, they can learn from racing with Ron Hornaday. Don't miss this opportunity.
And Kyle Busch, certainly a story. It's all but a formality now. All he needs to do is take the green flag lap in Homestead, and he'll capture the Nationwide Series championship. Dominating fashion here in 2009. Won 8 races, 24 top 5 finishes. Incredible. What do you make of that?
Well, I think he's won a lot of races in a lot of different vehicles, but now to finally win a championship, I think it's going to give him the confidence he needs to maybe go after the Sprint Cup championship next year.
And speaking of next year, he won't be here to defend his Nationwide Series title in 2010. How do you think that'll help him in terms of his focus, Ryan, on the Cup side of things?
Well, a frequent criticism of Kyle, fair or unfair, this season has been he's got too much going on. He has too many races going on, and it's been that way for a couple of years. So now you can focus and you can run those races, and if nothing else, the other guys are glad to see he's not going to be out.
Not just the focus, Ryan. It's the fact he's going to give the time to his crew chief that the crew chief deserves and warrants, and it's going to put him more closer on an even playing field with Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. And I think that jumping from place to place during the weekend works against you.
But I hope we still get a chance to see him go for the three-peat.
Yeah.
He was close.
He's going to get it one day, I'm pretty sure, and I don't think I'm alone in that thought. I think he's definitely going to win 3 races at the same racetrack in the same weekend. We'll have to wait for that one, though. Hey, still to come, here's some things you will have to wait, but not too long for. Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin took their rivalry to a whole new level. We'll discuss the fallout of their latest feud, and Jimmy Johnson has a nice, soft cushion heading to Homestead. We'll tell you how the 48 plans to approach the season finale. And there's a shot live from Homestead, Miami, a ship coming in through Biscayne Bay. And we've already got a reporter on site in Miami. We'll check in with Marty Smith coming up.
Championship, the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup, comes today to the Valley of the Sun in the Phoenix International Raceway. They're going to be door-to-door and bumper-to-bumper for 312 laps with an awful lot at stake.
If you're following NASCAR racing, you know last week that Jimmy Johnson went in with a huge lead. Unfortunately, came out of there with that lead cut more than in half.
You're ready to start a great race here today. Just remember, but if we just do our jobs, everything will fall into place the way it should be. Another day at the races. Go out here and show them how we grind.
We are underway, heading off into turn number 1. Martin Truex, Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane. That's the front 4. How long will they stay that way, and who will lead the first lap?
Good job, man. Pulled away by 5. Start early here, taking care of your equipment and your brake. It loses the front end over the course of the run. Gets the slide and bow pretty equal. Set 4? I have a little to go there if you free it up, but I'd like to try to not free up the entry. We're all over it, my friend. All over it, brother.
Now here goes Jeff Gordon for position.
We're proud of you guys, man. This is the best car we've had here in a long time. I'm loving it. Struggling to get it to turn in the middle. Boots off.
Jimmy Johnson has caught the race leader. Kurt slides off turn number 2. Johnson is there on the backstretch.
Doing a good job, bud. The 5 car is about 2 seconds back now. He's running at 3rd. I did get beat off the corner a little bit. When you stick with it, your might come to us. March, just quite a bit better in traffic than we are.
Oh, trouble
intentionally stopped short right there. Just ask Steve for a little courtesy. 10-4, I'm trying to get his attention. He won't even look over here.
Jimmy Johnson's crew holds serve, but look who's on his back bumper.
That's what I want to see. Go get him, Mark.
It's going to get interesting here. Ready. Ready.
Jimmy Johnson trying to get away from everybody. The scramble's going to be back there in second place.
Stay after, bud. You'll get him. Oh, my God. We're not any good. I don't know what happened.
Jimmy's been able to stretch his lead to about 1.3 seconds.
28.94. Good job. Got some clean air there, bud. Let her breathe. Nice and easy.
What a performance. The three-time champion gets it done here at Phoenix.
Yes! Where'd that 5 finish? 5 car finished 4th, but we gave it everything we had today. 10-4, buddy. You drove the wheels off it. Great job, Jimmy. Chad, great job, guys. Proud of all of you. Jimmy, fantastic job today, man. Awesome stuff, boys. Awesome stuff.
Some other race notes from Sunday. Jeff Burton's runner-up finish was the best of the season for him. Dale Earnhardt Jr. didn't fare as well. His 35th place finish means that he has finished outside the top 10 in 11 straight races. And the number 34 Chevrolet finished 1 place better Sunday. That car holds the 35th and final spot in the owner's points with a 114-point lead over 36th spot. The storylines now turn to Homestead, and our lead reporter, Marty Smith, is already there. Hey, Marty joins us now. And, Marty, I know you spoke with Jimmy and Mark today. First, let's talk about Jimmy. What was he saying?
Mike, Jimmy wants to take the exact same focus into Homestead this weekend that he took into Phoenix last weekend, that being, I have something to prove. After the disaster at Texas, Johnson actually told me he had one singular focus: go to Phoenix and win the race. And that's what he did. And he told me today he wants to go to Homestead this weekend with the exact same focus: go out, win the race, lead the most laps, and then history takes care of itself. As we've talked about incessantly throughout the season, this week certainly that's the key storyline. He wants to make history. He is now very cognizant of his position in the hierarchy of the greatest drivers of all time, and he wants to continue to escalate up that list and make it towards that elite tier plateau. And, you know, he's thinking about that right now.
All right, this is becoming kind of routine, I would say, for Jimmy Johnson. He's in familiar territory going into the season finale with a pretty healthy lead. What's the plan and the schedule heading into the race for the 48?
He'll spend Monday evening, this evening, and tomorrow on Tuesday in Charlotte, and then on Wednesday afternoon he'll come down to Miami, spend some time here that evening. Thursday he'll go to Juan Pablo Montoya's charity gala, and then on Friday he'll go down to the racetrack in Homestead and begin that quest to make history, Mike.
All right, how about Mark Martin? You talked to him today as well. What did he have to say?
That Jimmy Johnson is a freak. That's what Mark Martin said. What he means by that, of course, is that 48 team is just so difficult. No matter how well it seems the 5-car does on the racetrack, they still seem to lose ground unless the 48 has trouble. Mark told me that he believes Jimmy is indeed one of the greatest drivers of all time, and that he does want to make sure that the media and the fans realize he doesn't want a pity party. He doesn't want anybody feeling sorry for him. He's won a ton this year. He's had a better year than he ever could have dreamed, and he wants to make sure that people remain aware of that. Don't throw any pity parties for Mark Martin. He's extremely happy, and he's had a great year.
Yeah, he has indeed had a great year, and as far as I know, there are no pity parties planned, but there is a coronation planned for Homestead. Marty, thank you.
You got it, Mike. Thanks.
Coming up, they're the greatest of the great, Dynasties. Who are they? We'll define the term and show you where Jimmy Johnson and the 48 team fit in. And Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski gave us a lot to talk about this weekend, so that's what we're going to do. We'll discuss their latest feud coming up.
This is NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot.
Oh, contact. Whoa. Keselowski runs it up high, down the backstretch. Here we go, Denny Hamlin. And he turns Hamlin. Gets into Hamlin. Remember, these guys have history from before.
The 88 just flat out dumped the 20. What is wrong with that kid?
And I don't think Denny Hamlin's going to be too happy about this right here.
Denny got in the back of me and pushed me up the track, and you know I was going to return the favor, and When he did it to me, I saved it, and when I did it to him, he didn't save it.
There's a lot of guys that owe him. There's a lot of guys that have a lot of chips that they're going to cash in. I'm just going to be the first of the pay window.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but in my neighborhood, those are fighting words.
That might prove true.
Yeah. What do you guys make of this situation?
Well, I think Denny Hamlin, he considers himself, a veteran right now, and he doesn't think that Brad Keselowski's giving him any respect, and he's mad about it. So I think Brad needs to look over his shoulder come this weekend.
Yeah, there's no question. Anytime a driver feels like somebody took something from them, they're going to mark down the scorecard, and they're eventually going to get even. But this has happened too frequently in too short a time, and I think it's going to reach a boiling point here this week.
Ryan, as journalist, this gives us lots to write about.
Hey, man, you took my line. As a writer, I love it. And every time it's happened, and it's funny because you kind of track race fans on Twitter or wherever, Facebook, and man, it just lit up. And it just, everybody says, well, everybody's just talking about Jimmy Johnson, At Homestead, I'll be talking about Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin. I mean, I love it.
And I like the way Denny Hamlin, as cool and calm as he was, he still called the guy out as mad as he was. I thought that was a pretty cool way to do it.
And cleverly. I mean, those are good. Those are some of the best quotes we've had this year.
What's it like being in a situation like this? I know both of you have had your run-ins
Boris,
with
you're
other
great
people.
at this. Tell us.
Well, I was in that situation with Marcus Ambrose last year, and I acted like an idiot after. But, basically, there's so much emotion in it, you can't control yourself because you're just so angry. It's like road rage on the highway, and some people handle it better, like Denny Hamlin, and some people don't handle it so good, like myself.
You acted like an idiot?
Well, I do most of the time, and I did that day.
Now, you handled yourself well. The fact is, like I said, when somebody takes something from you, you don't forget it. And usually, if it doesn't carry over to the next week, it carries over into the motorhome lot, and it gets settled there. And this thing's gone on way too long, hasn't it? I mean, NASCAR, I would think, is going to interfere with this because
interfere?
Yeah, because
or interject. Well, interfere connotates that they're going to ruin it for us.
And in Brad Keselowski's
from your seat, it's ruining it. But from Boris and my seat, and when you're in the car and your team works all week on these cars, and to say that you would encourage this or enjoy this is quite a contrast. The guys that are missing, events with their kids or missing dinner because they're working late hours. My point is this: these guys put too much effort into this for it to carry over to the next week, and NASCAR will have an effect if they choose to say, look, we'll just park both of you.
But there's no question, Brad Keselowski's a talented driver. In his defense, in his mind, he needs to prove that, hey, I'm not going to take any crap from these guys. I need to prove I can be here. So, there's been drivers in the past, like Ernie Irvin, where he's had to get up in front of everyone at the drivers' meeting and apologize for the way he's been driving. And I think Brad Keselowski is going to have to learn to fit in because he's going to race these guys week in and week out, and they won't forget.
I agree.
What if they don't wreck the cars, but they just shove a little bit? Is that be okay with you guys?
It doesn't matter. Is it okay with them?
As a driver, you want people to race you as you'd race them, and as a driver if a guy did you wrong, and you don't forget about it.
I hate to cut this conversation short, but my producer's going to yell at me if we don't make the turn here. Now, Denny Hamlin made a turn of his own. He made some news this week for other reasons, and that's because he advocated the use of an advisory board, and this stems from, we all remember the bump drafting ban in Talladega. Well, he got wind that Jeff Gordon went to NASCAR and made some suggestions, and he didn't like that. This is what Denny Hamlin had to say. He said, we've all driven the COT the same number of years. I wish everyone could have equal say, not just somebody behind closed doors being able to change the rules. Now, as we mentioned, he had suggested an advisory board. Do you see this as being a realistic possibility?
No. I think NASCAR, what's made it so successful is, basically there's one guy calling the shots over there, and they do the best they can for the sport. And I think they were in a tough spot at Talladega because they can't have a car getting up in the stands and hurting anybody. They're made for a boring race. They have a problem. They're going to work on it. They need to do something.
Okay, so I'll follow along here. We're going to have an advisory board. Who's going to run it? I'll tell you who. The guy that has over 1,000 starts, his name is Mark Martin. Or the guy that has 580 starts, Jeff Gordon. Not the guy that has 150 starts in the sport. This is just the way it works. I don't care if it's football, basketball, baseball, or auto racing. The guys that have the 4 championships and have dedicated their life to this are going to have a little more authority, and the only way you can change that is to back it up on the racetrack and not in the media room.
I agree.
And we may have already seen the start of this because, keep in mind, at the beginning of this season and late last season, NASCAR did have this town hall meeting in Concord. We all stood in the parking lot trying to get sound bites. But they met with them to talk about the issues of the sport. And drivers had input, and crew chiefs and car owners, they all had input. So perhaps we already kind of have an advisory board. It just might not be what Denny Hamlin had in mind.
Denny Hamlin suggested that he should have an equal voice to Jeff Gordon.
I shudder at the idea that one driver can go in and influence a rules change. Okay, I mean, listen, Jeff Gordon, in my world, gets credit for being the only driver to admit that he went and talked to NASCAR. Okay,
yeah, other guys did it.
You're darn right.
Other guys did it. He's just the only one that fessed up to it.
Yeah, and so, you know, I kind of get fired up about this because, you know, when I was a rookie, it was Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Darrell Waltrip. And none of us young drivers questioned them. We may not have always agreed with them, but we followed along because we respected them. And you better respect Jimmy Johnson and Mark Martin, and you darn well better respect Jeff Gordon because he's paid his dues.
I agree. I mean, I think nothing to take anything away from Denny Hamlin, but if you're a 4-time champion, that gives you a little more credibility when you're going into the NASCAR trailer.
Yep. So an advisory board, and at the end of the day, you don't think it's going to happen?
No, I don't think it's going. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, you know, you got to get what's the basis for it? Talladega? Look, we've been arguing about Talladega every Monday after every race for 20 years.
And that will continue to be the case for the next 20 years, I'm sure. Hey, folks, still plenty to come here on NASCAR Now. Don't go away. Still ahead, history is calling Jimmy Johnson and the 48 team. Why the drive for 4 in a row is quite inspirational.
If you're trying to do something that someone else has never done, it's a big motivation.
Your fix of Monday Night Football on ESPN. Tonight, it's an AFC North showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns. Monday Night Countdown gets things started at 7 p.m., followed by the game at 8:30. It's all served to you by Applebee's.
This time, Box Johnson as the leader. No driver has ever won 3 of the first 5 chase races. Jimmy Johnson gets the win.
Absolutely fantastic effort, Jimmy. Absolutely fantastic. Johnson, are you kidding me? He just completed the biggest goal of my life, just so you know.
At the beginning of the show, we asked you who you thought was the greatest owner in sports of all time, and here's your answer. And 45% say Rick Hendrick, and we would expect that out of our audience. Coming up second, 19%, the people of Green Bay, the owner of the Green Bay Packers. Now, these owners have all pieced together dynasties, an elite category of which Jimmy Johnson is already in.
Bulls win the title! The Bulls are the world champs again! The Canadians win the Stanley Cup! Can you say three-peat?
The Lakers are champions again!
Dynasties create sports emotion. They make you care. They make you feel.
A dynasty is a couple of generations of excellence.
My definition of a dynasty is you have to win 3 straight, period. No question.
The Boston Celtics are once again the world champions.
Dynasty teams are teams that have certain things underlying them. Not the records, the championships, but how the people play together, get together, face adversity together.
You wanted to play for each other. You didn't want to let your teammate down.
It's much bigger than just me. I mean, I've done everything I can this year, my entire life. Everything, I mean, I'm all in. And I mean, you go down through an entire roster of guys, and they're all in. And that's what it takes.
You think it's life or death in the sense of, God, you're working so hard to achieve a common goal for such long periods of time, such close proximity, unified by this common goal.
And the New York Yankees have won the World Series.
Every day, it's like we're playing in a World Series game. That's the attitude, that's the approach we had.
The goal is just to be there and be competitive and be a threat to win it every year.
The greatest strength that we had was team. There were no I's or me's. There was one team.
The Green Bay Packers have won 3 straight National Football League championships.
You know, it's hard to have a dynasty and then all of a sudden to keep it going.
It's just amazing the fortune and how it comes and goes, and you just don't know when it's going to be your time, and if it's your time, how long it's going to last.
Preparation, talent, chemistry, all coming together when you have to stand up and be counted.
It's about winning championships, and it's about the journey to win championships. You know, that's the ultimate challenge for us, is to get to that next level, is to do it again.
we'd get through winning a championship and say, you know, come back 4 months later and say, let's get it again. Kill, you know, let's do it one more time.
If you're trying to do something that someone else has never done, it's a big motivation.
It means a lot to us, I mean, because we make history. Very few teams have done this. It's a major accomplishment for the franchise and for the team.
To make history would be the ultimate. I mean, to have a place in the record books like that would be the ultimate.
The last two voices you hear in that piece, Michael Jordan and Jimmy Johnson, in the same breath. That in itself says something. What makes Jimmy Johnson so good, guys?
He makes it look easy. And I think that's part of why
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why people dislike it, or it's not real good flavor right now. But for those racing against him, they do appreciate it because they're out there sharing the same track for 3.5, 4 hours. Mark Martin says he's the most underrated, underappreciated driver that he out there, and he's the hardest working. An endorsement from the second place guy trying to beat him for a championship. That's the ultimate.
He also called him a freak.
Yeah. I mean, he's a freak. He's so good. It's just amazing. I mean, if we knew how good he was or how to be that good, we'd write a book and make $1 million. I mean, basically, when you watch him, he's so calm all the time in the car. Every time you hear him on the radio, he fine-tunes that car so good. He's got great communication with Chad. It's a team, but Jimmy Johnson really is the quarterback, and, you know, he's just the best in the business right now.
You have some thoughts on this, Ryan?
Yeah, well, one of the things that jumped out at me earlier in the show was we saw his points lead going into Homestead, or his points lead late in the season, and I don't think I realized how big of a lead he'd had each year. And I don't think I remembered that he had a bigger lead last year than he's had this year. So it's not just that he's won championships. He's won championships by a very large margin. It hasn't even really been that close. And not only that, but he's contended for championships since 2002, his first full season in the sport.
Okay, Mark Martin could, in theory, win this championship, so I may have already answered this question, but who is going to knock him off?
The only driver that I see knocking off Jimmy Johnson is somebody that possesses that same attitude that I saw from Jeff Gordon back in the late 90s. You might have seen from Dale Earnhardt in the 80s. You got to want it worse, or you don't want it more, and you just got to throw caution to the wind and just go after it and take it from him. And I haven't seen that for 4 years.
And the thing about Jimmy, he's not done. He could still win this thing next year.
And the hungry guy, he's talking about the hungry guy, the Darrell Waltrip or the Jimmy Johnson that comes along and knocks off the guy who kind of got comfortable.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, that guy may not be here yet. Jimmy Johnson can win 5, 6, 7. Who knows how many this team can win in a row? Straight ahead, Jimmy Johnson and the 48 team went to the desert and dominated Sunday. We'll get some final thoughts from our roundtable guests on his performance.
NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot. Visit homedepot.com. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot.
All right, guys, time now for some final thoughts. Jimmy Johnson has never won at Homestead. How badly do you think he wants a victory at that racetrack?
Well, in Mark Martin's case, he probably hopes he doesn't want it as bad as that Phoenix one last week, because if he decides he wants it and he goes after it, I think he'll probably get it, just like he did last week. Boris, you made a point earlier about how relaxed he sounds on the radio. How about him being on the radio, talking to his crew, driving away?
Yeah, at 160 miles an hour. And also, Jimmy Johnson's never needed to win at Homestead, but what he needs to do is win that championship, and he will.
Yeah, he still doesn't need a win. I mean, he only needs to race. You know, he does need to, you know, be within 25 positions or so of Mark Martin to come on, but he doesn't need to charge to the front.
Well, and that 25th or better is even a little bit of a misnomer, because we know a couple of cars are going to pull off the racetrack. And so really it's about a 28th, maybe 29th place finish or higher. But you know, you look at his numbers from Homestead, they don't look that great, but in the past, he really hasn't had to win there. That's why they're not that great.
All right, quickly, guys, just want to wrap this up. There's a number of drivers racing for pride this week, a number of guys we expected to go to victory lane in 2009 who haven't done so. Quickly, which one of them do you think is most likely to pull it off? I mean, you got guys like Carl Edwards.
Greg Biffle.
Greg Biffle.
Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, Biffle's never run a full season without a win, so I think it's going to be the guy. He's won there 3 times.
He's won there a bunch of times. And, of course, there's Carl Edwards, and this other guy, Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah.
Needs a win, too. And also, Richard Childress Racing, they haven't won all season long. Hard to imagine that they won't go to victory lane. Jeff Burton certainly looked strong this past week in Phoenix. You got to believe he'll be strong once again. Folks, thanks for tuning in to NASCAR Now. Enjoy the week. We'll be in Homestead later on. Good night, everyone.